Hey everybody, it's Cameron Sutter here with Plottr, and I've got a special guest with me, Johnny B.Truant. I'll let him introduce himself, but I am really excited about something he's working on called the Artisan Author, and we're going to be talking about that today. So Johnny, take it away.
This is kind of fun. Thanks for having me on. Just a little personal note. It was kind of cool. Like you and I just met randomly at the last 20 Books conference, and it was like
Yeah.
vibed right away. So yeah, when I had this project, it's like let's talk about it. So that's cool. So anyway, so who I am, probably the most relevant to this audience is that I have kind of a storied history in. It sounds pompous, but being a self-publishing authority, honestly. So back in 2012, 2011, something like that, I started the self-publishing podcast with two partners, Sean Platt and David Wright. And the Johnny, Sean, Dave trio on the self-publishing podcast was kind of a fun phenomenon for a while. We were one of the first podcasts. I mean, the fact that it was called the self-publishing podcast tells you something. Joanna Penn beat us. She did. She had us lapped. So we had that podcast for a handful of years and wrote the book Write, Publish, Repeat in 2013, which kind of became an industry cornerstone and still is today. And we hosted the Smarter Artist Summit as well in Austin from, I think it was 2014 to 2018, and kind of step back from a lot of that. But that is chiefly what I'm known for in author circles. And then as an author for like in reader circles, I've published a little over 100 books in time. I'm just naturally a very fast writer, and I'm perhaps best known for Fat Vampire, which was purchased by NBC Universal and became the sci-fi and now Hulu TV show Reginald the Vampire. So that's who I am in a rather large nutshell.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to talk to you. You are one of the OGs of the self-publishing industry, and self-publishing has changed a lot over the years. I remember in 2010 when I published my first one, it was like the wild, wild west, and you talk about that in your book.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you talk about in your book is how it was this we had this incredible freedom back then, and then we kind of made our own prison
Yeah.
because of the ideas of rapid release, and we got to put more content out, and now there's these algorithms and things like that. And I want to kind of dive into all of those things, not too deeply, but to me, one of the things that was mind-blowing was the idea of writing to algorithms. And when I say I'm a software engineer and I know about algorithms, but the way you described it in the book, like I didn't realize that is the way you had to do this with rapid release. Like I'm not that prolific of a writer that
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing that much, and so I wasn't keeping up with that. But can you just kind of describe that prison that we made for ourselves, just really briefly, of having to write to an algorithm and what that means?
Yeah, that's a super fun question. Thank you for asking it. And I just want to preface it just slightly by going back a little bit more when you were talking about when
Oh, sure.
the dawn of modern self-publishing, because there was this joy to it. And I just remember it was like the Wild West, but it was a giddy Wild West because we were suddenly like, oh, there's no gatekeepers. We can do whatever we want. This is awesome. It was just open possibility. And it just felt like we were all trying to figure it out together. And that was the self-publishing podcast. We didn't come in with a lot of authority. We were trying to figure it out for ourselves. So we invited guests on who knew. And it did feel like the entire community was trying to figure this thing out. But then into the point of your question, it's very natural, I think, if you look at like human psychology and just the behavior of systems, that this was going to happen. And by this, I mean what I'm considering to be kind of a rat race of rapid release publishing. So just very briefly to get everybody engaged in case you aren't aware of this. Currently, if you're publishing into Kindle Unlimited and that's kind of your exclusive strategy and you aren't doing a lot of other things and you aren't wide and you aren't doing paperbacks and stuff, then that system requires you to keep publishing super fast. And it's driving a lot of writers, I think, into burnout because they're not suited for it, but they're being coached that this is the way that publishing is done. So that's the end point. So we have the two, like the giddy, like we're excited. And then this, like I said, the prison that we built, because we had these wide open fields as kind of a community. And what we chose to do inevitably, subconsciously, I imagine, was to build systems, and we build our own gatekeepers essentially. And in this case, they're like the algorithmic gatekeepers rather than literal humans, because the fastest things and the most on market things rise to the top. So what that means when I say that it's natural in terms of human psychology and systems is that there was this initial rush of giddiness and excitement. But then once that kind of settled down and we all kind of collectively rolled up our sleeves and got to work, then it was like, okay, well, we figured out that there were algorithms and that they were responding to certain things. And then we kind of tweaked those things. And inevitably over time, people figured out how to optimize their approach to writing for algorithms. Or like when Kindle Unlimited was new, you were getting cash money rather than page reads. And so people were like, oh, wait, hold on a second. If we write a book and that book sells, we'll get money. Okay, I'm just going to write short books, or I'm going to write a book. When page reads came about, it's like, I'm going to write a book that has a link at the beginning that clicks to the end so that suddenly you're getting credit for an entire book's worth of page reads. People started trying to game the system, which I think is natural because everybody wanted to sell more books. But then it's a vicious cycle because Amazon, I think, collectively said, okay, well, we want to sell a lot more books. And these people over here, they're writing a book every 2 months, but these people over here, they're writing a book every 6 weeks. Why don't we give them an advantage because they're publishing quick? Because the algorithms reward many things, but they reward recency and sort of track record and repetition, especially when people keep buying your books. And they keep buying them, then the algorithm says feature them more, which is what causes you to sell more books. So that interplay between Amazon giving an advantage to people who went faster, the algorithms, and people being willing to go faster, it just created this rat race. It just created this, in my personal view, and I don't mean to be judgy, but I think it's a race to the bottom. And I think that happens with everything. If you're willing to sell your widget that you've made for $2 less than the next guy, then okay, the next person entering the sphere has to go, well, okay, well, I'm willing to sell it for $1 less than that, because you're competing on price and recency. So
Right.
that's kind of what I meant by that, is that we're writing to what the algorithms want, because the algorithms will feature our books rather than what we originally did, which was writing for readers directly.
Yeah. And so in my mind, it's kind of this, if you, to kind of frame this for people that are writing their first book and they're like, okay, what am I going to do once I market this? If you put it on Amazon, basically you're just kind of putting it into a void. There's the chances of somebody just finding you are very small. But if you start writing quickly and publish multiple books and you hit the right timing that they tell you and the right genre so that they can feature you, then you'll get more traction.
Right.
That's what you're saying with the algorithms, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And so then it becomes your own prison. Like you have to keep writing at this genre with these tropes at this timing, and that was the part that I guess was kind of eye-opening to me, because that's not why I started writing. That's not what I got into writing
I
for,
think it's not why a lot of people started writing.
Yeah, I don't think most people get into writing for that. And it's not that it's wrong to make money from our writing. That's why we're in it, and that's why or that's one of the reasons at least we're in it, and we need that money to keep
Yeah.
writing.
It buys
But
you time to write more.
yeah, exactly. But kind of breaking free from that, it's like, I don't know, I'm thinking of all these movies where somebody wakes up to this and like there's another way, and I don't have to be plugged into this system. There's something else I can do. And that's kind of where your book comes in, right? You're showing people that other way.
Yeah, and it's not a way. I mean, first of all, I take a little bit of responsibility for this, because write, publish, repeat. A lot of people are like, didn't you write a book called Write, Publish, Repeat? Aren't you saying to rapid release? And it was like, no, we were saying to repeat. We were not saying to go requirement to go fast, or you will crash at all times and everything else is secondary, like your creative joy, your fulfillment, your health, the risk of burnout. Like these are things that we would have advised against. But that you're right that most people don't get into it for that. And I think there's this perception, because it is kind of like it's an arms race in addition to a rat race, which is kind of like, well, wait a minute. If I'm writing for joy and I write one book, there's somebody over here who's doing a lot more. And so I'd better keep up. And
Mm.
and it's hard to find that line, because we even gave advice early on that, and I think it's in Write, Publish, Repeat, which was like, just go ahead and write 3 books so that you can launch with a trilogy. But the difference is that it wasn't totally a requirement just then. And we were looking at it from a marketing standpoint. If you have a second book for somebody to buy up to, it's easier to get that momentum of that reader's attention rather than an algorithm's attention, although that it also had that benefit. But we just kind of stepped into this thing where we were going faster and faster, and it's become stock advice. And actually the origin story of this whole thing was at the event that we met at. Oh, I'm just now remembering that we talked about doing like something. Do you remember? Like we were sitting around
Oh,
it at
yeah,
at at like
at
dinner one
dinner,
day, and
yeah.
we were like, let's do something manifesto-y to help reverse this for a lot of people. I'm kind of taking a stand for the artist, but because the people who succeed at this tend to be vocal, they're the ones you see. It's become kind of a default feeling, and that encourages more new people coming in who don't necessarily know otherwise to say, well, this must be the way to do it, and therefore I'm going to do it. And when I came back in 2024 to Author Nation and gave a presentation on this, the reaction I got was, oh my God, I didn't know that this way was possible. I didn't know there was another way. And it's exactly like you're describing. They just, it's quiet advice, and I didn't invent it. I mean, this is like how things are sold. Create a good product, find somebody who likes that product, and sell it at a fair price. I could write that on a napkin. I didn't need to write a book for that. So it's really more about unlearning a lot of the stuff and going back to how I think humans still behave when separated from algorithms.
Yeah, one of the things you said in your book is you call them the four horsemen.
Yeah.
And you said, and I forget, I have them written down here that I'm looking at, but I forget which way they went, but it was like joy turned into stress,
Yeah.
readers turned into algorithms, good business practices turned into a race to the bottom, and success became a trap. You were just trying to feed the algorithm. Those are your kind of four horsemen. I thought that was so cool. And like this way will bring you back those other things. You want joy, not stress. You want readers, not algorithms. You want good business sense, and so forth.
Yeah, I should probably give the caveat that I always feel the need to do this because there are some people for whom rapid release is perfect. But I think that they're a very, very small number. And the number that are successful and perfect for it. But even the people that I know who've been the most successful in rapid release, a lot of them understand what they're getting into. They understand that this is a bubble that could pop, like Amazon could go away. They could change their algorithms. They've done this before. Like Amazon has
Yeah.
pulled the rug several times out from publishers. And, but they kind of know that, and they built their systems around it, and they have ways to either siphon people off and keep them on a list or something. But this wanton, like just going in and just like, this is the way we're going to do it. And you say, well, I came into it with joy, and now I have stress because I can't take a break. I have to produce a book every 3 weeks. And, I don't realize that I'm writing what the algorithms want rather than what readers and I want. Is it was a slow change, and we've ended up in a place where a lot of people, and I'm one of them, and it seems like you're one of them, they don't work that way. And so the way that the rapid release people are doing it, the ones who are doing it well and they know what they're in, and they're successful at it, and they understand that the rug could be pulled out, that's their way, and that's great. But we shouldn't have to do their way. And there's another way to do it and succeed and still make money and still get readers that doesn't require that.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's talk about that other way for a second here, or at least the way to make money. One of the things that was amazing to me is you said that you sell, well, first of all, let's start with this. So the first day that you got your physical copies of your book, you finally felt like a real author, right? You had this story where 13 years after publishing, you ordered paperbacks, you laid them out on like a table, and you're like, whoa, I feel like a real author now.
After 13 years of being an author. Yeah. Yeah, so that's and everything in this book is kind of, the book has two main points. One is the whole point of the artist and author, everything we're talking about here. But the other is, let's all stop pretending that we're all the same, and that the same advice works for everybody, and that everybody will have the same triggers. So for me, I felt like a real author. I loved having physical books in my hand. I also love selling books in person. But that is not the same thing as advice to everyone else or saying that you will have the same experience. But for me, I did. And it was this connection back to, this is a book, this is a book that I'm holding in my hand. And it's cool to hold a book in my hand in a way that, and I've since walked into bookstores and seen them on shelves. I've gone into libraries and seen them on shelves. And for me, that was validating in itself, even if they didn't sell. And so I think that there's an emotional thing that can happen here as well as a business thing where you just, like you just, oh, this is what I thought it was. When I got into writing, that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, the first time I held my own book in my hand, that was life-changing. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
made this and I could show it to people, and I can't read digital books. I can never finish them. I've got a list of them on my Kindle, and I've started all of them, and I've never finished maybe one of them. I don't know. That's just not how I read books. I love the physical feeling of books. And so I I do have ebooks of my books, but I don't focus on those. My focus is always the physical one. And this doesn't work for everybody for sure.
Mhm.
But I love the physical one. I want to put a physical one in somebody's hand. I want to be able to sign it, those kind of things. It's
Yeah.
really powerful to me.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing that happens with physical books that I've noticed just from observation, because I do sell live, that it's like, "Oh, that was nice, and I didn't know that I was missing that." It was one of those things, which
Interesting.
is when I set up a lot of times, and again, this is me, this is not advice for everybody. I wanna be super clear, everything in the book is it depends. If I A lot of the selling that I do is not even at comic conventions or places where people sell books. They're like street fairs. And so people aren't expecting to see books. They aren't going into a book event. And a lot of people just walk right by or they glance over and they're kind of like, okay, whatever. But it's so polar between the people who want books, really want books, and watching them go by and light up. And it's like, oh, books. And that doesn't happen with digital books. You
Yeah.
can't put out, even if you make a page on your website and your covers are beautiful. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that one's preferable, but it's not the same. And that visceral reaction of like, oh, books, and they light up and they come over and they're fascinated and they pick them up and you can interact with a book and feel its weight and in a way that you can't. And so that has been really gratifying too, is my delight in watching their delight, which I don't think happens with ebooks as much. And I certainly never got to see it before.
That's really cool. That is very cool. Your delight in seeing their delight.
Yeah.
You
Because
said
I
that.
think, well,
No, go ahead.
didn't a lot of us get into this because books delighted us?
Yeah.
And then we're like, I want to do that for somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah, that feeling, they were yeah, it changed my life. We could talk for hours about that. But you said that selling to people live changed your whole business and that you do it just about every weekend. Is that right?
No, it's not just about every weekend. I may have been hyperbolic. Maybe every free weekend, and it's already starting to evolve because I don't. I mean, this is just me. I actually think you're the same, Cameron. So I feel like we're gonna vibe on this. But like,
Yeah.
family is first. Like, I don't. If I have like one of my daughter's volleyball tournaments or something, I'm not going to book event. I don't care what it is. I'm going to the tournament.
Yeah.
So, but if I have free weekends, then I've been kind of trying to fill them,
You
and
might have
it's
said that in the book. I can't remember.
yeah, maybe. I mean, but it's a fast evolution. And again, not advice, but I do personally really, really love it because I'm at least half extrovert and I love that connection that I can make.
Yeah, that really resonates with me because so my daughter published her first book this year.
Oh my God,
And
congratulations. That's
yeah,
amazing.
thank you. We're just so excited for her. And so we're like, okay, how are we going to sell this thing? And I'm trying to, as she's trying to sell her book, I'm like, because I haven't tried to sell my books in a long time because I've been focusing on Plottr, and I have been writing, but I just haven't been publishing, and I just kind of let that go out by the wayside, and I realized how dumb that is, and so she came to a conference a couple months ago where I was selling Plottr, and she had her books next to like on the same table with me at Plottr, and
Hmm.
she sold, I don't know, 7 or 10 of them, and it was life changing
Oh
for
my
her.
God, that's got to be so validating.
Yeah, she made like $70 and she's like, "I've never made this much money in my life. People bought my books. How cool is this?" And it wasn't even hard. I just showed them my book and they bought it. And so and I brought my books too and I sold a few and I was like, I could start selling my books this way in person. And why have I not been doing this all this time? And so we've now have her books in this sorry, my phone went off. At this co-op store down the road and this local bookstore, we're trying to get it in there. And it's just kind of changed my whole view on selling books. And like, I can sell my books. I don't have to wait for somebody on Amazon to buy it. I can get out there and in person in a local place, just tell
Hmm.
people about my book and they'll buy it. And so I felt like when I read your book, I'm like, we're on the same wavelength here.
I didn't realize it would have such a personal connection. That's really cool that you're going to be able to apply this with your daughter. And yourself as well. But that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the artisan approach, and maybe I should pop the bubble on that right a little because I've been like artisan approach. I don't know what it is. It's based on 1,000 true fans. So if you know the idea of Kevin Kelly's 1,000 true fans, Kevin Kelly sort of famously said that to be successful as a creator, you need 1,000 true fans. That's it. And a true fan is like get the tattoo, ride or die, right? Like that's the center of the bullseye. People who love you. So if you get, 1,000 readers, maybe you'll get one true fan or something. Like the ratio is small, but it's quantifiable. It's not a lot. It's not bestseller rank on Amazon. It's like there's a human being, and that human being was interested in my book. And if you're selling to individual people on 1,000 true fans approach and trying to get people who just love you, then they're looking for you first. You don't have to surface in an algorithm every single time you want to sell to them, because they have a connection of some sort. And so for me, and it sounds like for you this would work, is to have a lot of that in-person component. But I know a lot of writers are super introverted, and the idea of doing anything in person is scary, and I get it. And it's, again, not something I'm specifically advising people do, but it is a personal approach, even if it's not an in-person approach. So,
Mhm.
and I know we're going to talk about this another time, but we want to talk, like, AI is impersonal. I don't have a problem with it necessarily, but it's not personal. It's not
Yeah.
something that came from you in the same way, of the way a lot of people use it. And rapid release, because it's so fast, it kind of becomes impersonal by necessity. Because if you're writing and you need to produce a book every 3 or 4 weeks, you don't have time to do a lot of personal interaction. So you might do this on social media. You might do it with your email list. You might do it just if people around you know that you're an author, you're forming personal connections, and they get to like you first. And I know this is true in person. It would be true in other ways too. Is one of the biggest ingredients is them seeing the customer, the reader, seeing your enthusiasm and confidence for your own book.
Mhm.
I don't know how it was with, I'm actually kind of curious to hear with you and your daughter. I have this element of, like, by the time they buy the book, it almost feels like it's already sold. It's just a matter of which book am I going to get, or if there's only one book, but they get to, they're already sold on you. They're sold on your personality and the fact that this came from you. Was that true of you?
Yeah, I think so because yeah, that actually describes it really well because I don't think the people we sold the books to even knew much about the book. They were just like, we were chatting with them and talking to
Mm-hmm.
them, and they're like, "Man, you're really cool. Oh, wait, did you write this book? You did? How much is it?" That kind of a thing. They're
Yeah.
like, they were totally sold on us. I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
And the prices also, by the way. I mean, I run into so many people, like, we've been conditioned. The rapid release mentality in its extreme is like, the book is either free to the customer because they're already in Kindle Unlimited and they're paying a monthly fee anyway, or maybe it's 99 cents if they're not in Kindle Unlimited. And so we've been trained like, oh, don't go higher than $2.99, $3.99. That's too expensive for a book. And we aren't even considering paperbacks. So it doesn't go higher than that. But even in paperbacks, people will be like, oh, I can't sell for my book for more than $15 or something like that. And if it's a small book, maybe that's the right price. But if I'm writing a 400-page book or something like that, like, I would say my average price is probably 25 for my paperbacks.
Cool.
And I've had people say, like, well, that's too expensive. Well, nobody looks at the price. Like, I've trained myself to tell people, oh, okay, here's what you're paying when they give me their credit card, because they just say, I'll take this. And I'm like, do you want to read the back? Don't need to read the back. You just told me about it. Do you want to know the price? Didn't look at the price.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And I've definitely that's something I need to change about my strategy because I was going even for paperbacks ultra cheap. But after reading your book, I'm like, yeah, I mean, almost no. The only reason they asked for the price when we were selling with my daughter was they just wanted to know how much money to get out of their wallet.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, is that cheap enough? It was just, how much do I have to pay you?
Mhm.
So we could have probably, I think we were doing it for like 10, but we probably could have said 20 and they would have been like, okay, yeah, here you go. Because a lot of them did say that's too cheap. You got to charge more.
Well, there's something kind of defiant and rebellious about this approach, I think, because it requires you to, well, it doesn't require you, but I would say it benefits from a loose metric that I would just call being reasonable, being a cool person, because it's real easy to say, because I thought of this as I was just listening to you talk and remembering what I had said. I'll bet some people are like, ooh, I can charge a whole lot of money, like an unreasonable amount. Like,
Right.
this is free reign to jack up my prices and play some sort of a game with it. It's not the answer. The answer is, remember, human being author, human being. It's so funny. I'm just remembering your Substack is Real Human Writers. So
Right.
real human being author, real human being reader. And how do two human beings interact? Like, don't be a jerk. Just sell a fair price. Like, what's a book cost? Don't
Yeah.
try to play tricks or whatever. Just, do you want to read this? Okay, yes, let's exchange value.
Right. Yes, exactly. And you said something that kind of touches on another thing I wanted to ask you about. You said, I forget the word you used, but this was kind of a rebellious act or something like that.
Yeah.
You said in your book, this frees you up to write whatever you want as well. You don't have to write to the algorithm, the genre that people are expecting. You can write what is true to you, what the story in you. And I think that's one of the reasons that people started writing. There's a story in them, and it's a little quirky and a little weird compared to other stories out there, but it was their story.
Yep.
And you said something like, who are you trying to offend? Don't pull punches. Artists offend. And here's a quote. You said, the more you're afraid that your book will rustle some feathers, the more likely it is that you'll be, wait, the more you're afraid that your book will rustle some feathers, the more likely it is that you'll be someone's favorite book of all time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because I mean, I think that's the nature of art, is you don't want something that kind of generally appeals to everybody. You want something that appeals strongly, unless you're in rapid release, which again, great
right.
for some people. But I'm kind of an art and creativity first person. And so I want to make, it sounds pretentious, I want to make art. And that means that I'm going to do it my way. And there's kind of a stake in the sand that's sort of like, sorry, this is take it or leave it. I mean, I'm going to fix the typos and that sort of thing, but I'm not going to change topics. And if you want me to kill off a character that I don't want to kill off, I'm not going to do it. And that is, I think, rebellious. I think that it's outside of the mainstream by definition. But the other thing I would add to this is, because what you're saying, like being somebody's favorite book of all time, that's very much true. And it's truer once people get down the pike a little bit and they get to know you. Like the people who are my true fans, and I'm accumulating them faster than ever now, they know what to expect from me. And I would actually alienate them if I made everything bland at this point. Like I need to be me for them. But in addition, there's this, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because it's just a long story and everything, but the media that our perception of what it is, what the real world is largely shaped by the media we consume. And the media that we consume is controlled by a small group. Now, I don't say that like a conspiracy theory. It's just
Sure.
factually true that there's a limited number of people who can have the resources, budgets, and everything to put out media. And
Yeah.
I'm talking like TV and movies and stuff. It's changing a little bit with the democratization of media, changing a lot, actually. But that means that what we consider to be normal is actually just the worldview of that group. It's given disproportionate weight. My favorite example is, if you didn't know anything about the United States, you'd think that it was mostly California, because everything's in California, because the people who write it know California. So they write their neighborhood, they write their people, they write their favorite hangouts. So the flip side of that is that if you don't mesh perfectly with that worldview of those people, if you're a little different from them, then it means that is an underserved group. The people who are like you have not had nearly as much or any media made for them. So if you have a freak flag to fly, if you're different, if you're unique, if you're quirky in any way, and you just go ahead and lean in and do that, it was the pillar number 6, be yourself, then you will find that this ravenous audience somewhere, it might take you a while to find them. They're like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. And it didn't exist until now. So that's the other thing too, because remember, you have to shift the paradigm. You're not trying to capture the world's attention. You're trying to capture your 1,000 true fans. You're trying to capture niche attention. You want to be a cult hit rather than a summer blockbuster.
Yeah. The people that like you are going to like what you write. And that's what you're going for.
Yeah. And it's bulletproof. It means that they'll stick with you. I mean, there's obviously going to be some attrition in anything, but if you're like a commodity type fan, which is what a lot of rapid release readers tend to be. I mean, they're great people, and I love people who read that much and all that, but their speed and their voraciousness limits how much they can bond with any one person. And when they're just kind of consuming books like they would potato chips, they don't have time or inclination to bond with any of those creators. So
Mm.
like we want that bonding. And then if Amazon goes away, if we change platforms, if we decide to write something that's totally out of left field, our true fans are still going to want to read it.
Yeah. And when you were saying that artists offend, I was thinking about a lot of the great classics, like the Fahrenheit 451. It's my favorite book.
Mm-hmm.
Brave New World. I can only imagine at those times when those came out, they were very offensive to a lot of people. To even
Mm-hmm.
suggest that that's the way the world is headed, or that people are like that. Thinking Brave New World or something like that. I can only imagine how offensive they were, but that's why they became so powerful for
Yeah.
people, I think. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to write something that's powerful, that really gives people good, entertains them, and gives them a wow moment, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a rebel at heart. I like the idea of selectively offending and being a little bit of a disruptor.
So before we wrap up here, we should talk AI a little bit, because I know we wanted to talk about that, and I write about AI, and I make tools with AI and stuff, and so and I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I want to hear your thoughts about how does an artist and author approach AI? What's their thought? I mean, this thing is changing the world, and so how does that affect writing books and things? What do you think?
Well, so I'm not anti-AI. It would be really easy to think that this is anti-AI. And actually, when I was publishing some early Substack posts on it, I would use AI imagery, and people were like, "You're using AI imagery?" And yeah, okay, because I don't have a problem with it. The I'm kind of the important thing about artisan authoring is that it came from you, right? It's an art first approach. It kind of has to come from you, and that can take a bunch of different forms. I don't want AI in my writing at all. Like when I say actual writing itself, I have no interest in that. On a case by, I'm not in a position also to tell anyone what's right and wrong. So I wouldn't weigh that judgment. But I don't know where that line is for individual people as far as like, oh, it's writing some of my prose and then I edit it. Like, I don't know. That's your business. It's just important that what comes out is a true representation of who you are. And there's a lot of appeal to kind of handmade, and there's a lot of appeal to the idea that nothing touched this. And I know that a lot of the kind of artisan readers, I've even had people say, use any AI? And it's clear that if I said yes, they'd be out the door. But I think that it has a real place, if only because it's here. And I think it's really head in the sand to just say, well, I'm not going to participate in something that is going to touch every aspect of modern life. I think it already is.
Yeah.
So I personally, one of the uses of AI that I think is just amazing, and I didn't have a solution for this before. By the way, I think that's where I like it, is if I didn't have a solution and now it's now a solution, is so I have a huge world called the Beam, and it's super complex. It's like people are different ages than they appear, and they're telling one story and living another story. There's like minds inside of other people's bodies. And so keeping track of all those details after 5 huge books was really hard. But what AI could do for me is say, hey, is such and such person alive or dead in the year whatever? Or what is the relationship of this person to this person? Going and doing that deep research for me, which I then have to verify, of course, is kind of amazing. Anything that's top down summaries, you give me an entire book and narrow it down, like those sorts of things I really enjoy, and I certainly don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I know. I've started to kind of think of it as content versus supporting the content, where it maybe not your it's not your skill set, it's not what you're good at, it's not the part of your business that you like. I don't like writing marketing copy, for example, and so this can do that for me. It can support the content, but the part you love, the part is that comes from you. I think it's kind of self-evident that
Hmm.
you want that to come from you. And yeah, I think I totally agree with you about, even if every person has to figure out what that means for themselves and where they use it and where they don't. But
Yeah.
as long as it comes from you, yeah, that feels like a good way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I used AI. So here's a specific case study. So I have a series called Gore Point, and it's a trilogy. And by the time I was releasing the third book, it had been forever since I wrote it. Long story there, but Sean and I wrote that trilogy, and then we kind of sat on it for a while. And so by the time I was releasing the third book in that trilogy, I was like, I didn't remember it at all. So my choices were to read it, which I didn't have time to do, or to upload it to Notebook LM and have it create a little podcast with 2 morning zoo type people talking about the book. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
I've tried
Oh,
that
I
as well.
remember that. Oh, I remember that. Being able to quickly get back to where I was with the project. That's super useful. And I didn't have a solution for that before, other than saying, okay, now go take 15 hours and sit down and read this book.
It's like I paid you for a promotion, because we actually have a tool that'll help you with that. No, I'm not gonna. So we made this thing called Story Snap, what actually builds a book Bible for you from your book, and so it lists out all your characters and descriptions of them, and
Yeah.
like an outline of your story, and it uses AI to be able to do that. for that exact reason. If you're on book 310 something of your series, you're gonna have so many characters that you forget, and it just very quickly lets you be able to reference your story and write the next book in the series.
Oh, well, that's perfect. It is almost as if I knew ahead of time. I swear I did not.
We won't tell anybody that. Or
Yeah.
I mean, we will tell everybody that. Oh, well, is there anything you want to say at the end of this before we close about your book or about anything we've talked about?
Well, is this the part where I self-promote, or is this the part where I tell you the least you need to know, or like a parting bit of wisdom?
Both and all of that.
Both and
No.
all. Yeah, the I think that the I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but the last thing I would like to say is that I think that we've been kind of I feel like I want to talk to the newer authors, because when I went to that conference that I hadn't been to in a while, and I was like, oh, this has changed a lot. Maybe I didn't tell that story, but I was thinking of new authors. Like, I was established, I had a whole bunch of books, and so I was thinking of the new author coming in and going, what wide eyes and unicorns when they first get there, and then they're like, oh, like a little bit more beat down every day. Like, oh, I don't really have a chance, and oh, I need to learn this new thing that I didn't want to do, and oh, I need to blah blah blah. So just don't, this sounds trite, but don't lose hope, right? So for you smaller or bigger who are art focused, you authors like who don't vibe with this approach and don't want to just throw your book away into Kindle Unlimited, but actually have a chance with it, there is another way. And it's nothing like, I'm not a genius who created something. This is just how things are sold. And it's the version of self-publishing that is out of whack. And that's just happened because of this spiral that we've been in. So that's the big thing, is like, I hope that this is a message of hope. I hope that people are like, yeah, maybe I'm okay. As far as the book itself, the book is called The Artisan Author, and it comes out on November 4th, but I'm currently doing a Kickstarter for depending on when you listen to this, and it runs from July 15th of 2025 to August 14th. And it's at johnnybtruant.com/artisan. And that link will redirect afterward to the book. In the meantime, if you're not into Kickstarter, it's up for pre-order everywhere.
Yeah, and we'll have a link for that in the description, and we'll send out an email and things like that. But yeah, I know I'm going to be backing that. I'm really excited, even though I already read the book. You said there's some other things involved with the Kickstarter, not just the book.
Yeah, I want to try
I don't
and
know if you
do.
want to go into detail, but
Well, we'll see how this works out. But this is a long story too, so I'll shorten it. But I discovered that I really like teaching more than I thought. I used to do a lot of it when we were on the self-publishing podcast and writing books for authors. And I thought that I would be kind of glad to be done with that and just be a fiction author. But I really like that interaction and working with writers. But I'm kind of allergic to the idea of what online course usually means. It's not a vibe I want. So I'm
yeah,
trying to do this thing. I'm calling it Artisan University, which is basically like, what would a college type course that used this book as a textbook, what would that look like? And I don't know how many people are going to be interested in that. Like, a lot of people will probably just want to grab the book, grab the paperback or the ebook or the audiobook and learn that way. But I thought it would be cool to see if I could do like a 10-week, twice a week lecture discussion, like like a college. And for certain tiers, like there's a quote exam where you make a marketing plan, and I'll
oh,
review it
okay,
and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm trying to walk the line where it by necessity, it kind of is an online course, but it's not. It feels more like a college where there just happens to be a computer between me and the other people.
yeah, very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Very
hope
cool.
people love it.
Well, thanks so much for joining me and for writing this book and showing us another way. It's already affected me and my daughter, and I'm really excited to live this rebellious life and start selling my books again. So thank you. I
I'm
appreciate it.
so gratified to hear the story about your daughter. Like, that's really super cool. And I have kids myself, and I just know what a big deal that is. And so I'm
Yeah,
great. That's great. I'm glad that it could help.
yeah. Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.